Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah. On this channel, I post a lot of anti-MLM content. As always, a playlist will be linked right here and down below. This is my big anti-MLM playlist. Over 100 videos on it at this time. And if any of that content does sound interesting to you, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, consider liking this video. All those things really help to support my channel, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. For today's video, I'm bringing you another MLM horror stories. These are your own personal experiences that you've written out and sent to me in an email and given me permission to read for a video. If at any time you're listening and you have your own story you would like to send in to me, the instructions for how to do that are in the description box below. It's super easy. You just send me an email. And without further ado, let's jump into these stories. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I found your channel a few days ago and I've been absolutely binging it. I used to work as a housekeeper. There are lots of reasons that I quit, but a big one was the cleaning supplies MLMs. I would bring my own supplies to the houses, but sometimes customers would want me to use theirs. It was generally annoying, but not really a problem. It was usually either because they just had a preferred brand or a medical issue. Either way, I would just do the job and move on to the next one. Then came the MLMs. I'll just talk about the first time this happened, since almost every time after that was similar enough to be downright surreal. I was hired to do a standard cleaning for a new customer. Thankfully, I always scheduled extra time for new customers. The entire day's schedule would have been completely shot otherwise. I arrived at the woman's house, introduced myself, and asked the standard new customer questions. That's when she let me know that she wanted me to use her supplies instead of mine. I agreed and set to work. Side note, if you want a cleaner to use your supplies, please let them know before you lug everything inside. I realized almost immediately that the product she gave me sucked. It was honestly worse than using no product at all. For example, the surface cleaner she gave me for the countertops left this sticky sort of filmy residue behind, and I had to scrub so freaking hard to get it off. By the time I was done, I was sore everywhere from the amount of extra effort and force I was using. Finally, I was finished. I just wanted to pack up my car, get to my next customer, and seriously consider whether or not I wanted to keep this new customer. Well, before I could leave, she sealed the deal on not. She wanted to know how I had liked the product. I didn't want to risk a bad review, so I just kind of awkwardly told her that they were very different than what I was used to. That was a mistake. I still wonder sometimes how it would have gone if I had just told her how awful they were. Turns out that the phrase "different from what I'm used to" translates into Hunbot as "I would absolutely love to spend the next 20 minutes listening to your MLM pitch." Or at least I assume that's the translation, since that's what happened. She immediately went into her pitch, gushing over these products and how wonderful they were and how well they worked. I don't know how I kept myself from laughing at that. She kept saying how they were better for my health because they were 100% chemical free. I'm sorry. Does she know that water is a chemical? I don't think these MLM reps know things like that, because they love to make claims like it's chemical free, it's so good for you. Ma'am, does your product contain any water at all? Most of them do. If it does, it's not chemical free. Hate to break it to you. It felt like years of my life were being drained away, and then came the recruitment pitch. She really tried to convince me that I would make more money selling these products to my existing customers than I was making cleaning for them. Most cleaners should be paid far more than they are. We work hard and see some pretty nasty and even disturbing things. However, it's a pretty lucrative business. No way was this Hun making more than I was, and no way was I going to jeopardize my business by using and selling terrible products. I tried to be diplomatic and simply say that I had strict requirements on what supplies I could bring into a customer's home. So she switched from saying I could sell the products to saying that I could sell my customers the opportunity. I was downright offended by this. I charged much less than most of the services in my area because I was specifically marketing to families and individuals who could not normally afford to hire a cleaning service. I grew up poor in a very poor area. I knew that a lot of people would benefit from having a bit of help and not having to stress about keeping their houses clean. That was how I advertised myself, as a housekeeper for people who couldn't afford a housekeeper. Most of the people I worked for were low income, and several were dealing with medical care that devoured their finances. Anyone who hired me would know that my customers did not have a lot of money. I was enraged that this woman was straight up telling me to target and exploit the vulnerable people I was trying to help. I left at that point, and I was so mad at what had happened, not to mention dangerously close to running behind on my schedule. Thank goodness I had allotted some extra time. time. I guess that I should have been more assertive, maybe even rude to her, because then she may have spread the word to the other Huns that I was not a viable target for their scam. After this first encounter counter, I started getting more and more people having me use their awful, sticky products and giving me the same speech over and over. It got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. This, as well as the physical toll the job takes, eventually caused me to find a new line of work. The cold messaging and constant spam on social media is frustrating enough. Being tricked into a situation I couldn't immediately leave and dealing with the Huns face to face was just on another level entirely. I would name the MLM involved, but I seem to have fully deleted the name from my memory. It might have been Norwex, but I'm honestly not sure. I do remember that it stank. One of the worst things I have ever smelled, and I was stuck using it in a tiny bathroom with no windows. I'm so glad that there are people like you spreading the word about how terrible these MLM companies are. Keep up the good work. And I'm so glad that there's people like you who are willing to share their story and take the time to write it in. This is a new perspective I haven't heard before of someone who is running a cleaning service and you're actually going into people's homes and having them pitch you. Like you said, that seems like a very confined situation that you couldn't get out of very easily, and it's hard to deal with people face to face. You don't want to be rude, you don't want to be off-putting, you don't want to lose their business, and you can't exactly just like ignore their message if you were on social media and they were trying to pitch you that way or something. That has to be so frustrating to deal with that so regularly, because I can imagine there's such a fine line of the things that you can or can't say or may not want to say. Hello, sir. Because after all, they are your clients and you do, okay. Because after all, they are your clients and there is that level of professionalism that you want to uphold with them. If there is one positive to your story, it's that you do seem to be pretty aware of MLMs and how they work, and that you weren't going to fall for the pitch of taking these products, using them in other people's houses, trying to sell them, trying to recruit people. That could have made for a lot bigger mess and a lot more damage done in the long run. But still, I'm really sorry you had to deal with that. That had to have been really frustrating. This story says, "Hey Hannah, this happened pretty recently and was rather devastating. I'm an elementary music teacher and 14-ish years ago was doing my student teaching. I got paired with this amazing teacher who was highly regarded not only in music ed circles, but also in the music community where I live. Getting to learn from her and be her student teacher felt like a dream come true. I learned so much under her, but it was not an easy experience. It's not that I wanted it to be easy, but gaining her approval was very hard. She stretched and challenged me for sure, but I left that experience feeling like I wasn't all she dreamed or hoped I would be as her student teacher. She was very kind, but it was clear that on some level I was kind of a disappointment. I was young, inexperienced, and made a ton of mistakes as most 21-year-olds do. Flash forward 14 years, I've been teaching at the same school for almost 10 years now, a not so minor miracle, and have really come into my own. I've gained so much confidence and I'm much more comfortable in this role, and I'm really thriving. I even got nominated for Teacher of the Year at my school this year, which kind of blew my mind. That's amazing. Congratulations. About 6 months ago, this mentor teacher of mine started messaging me on Facebook out of the blue. We'd occasionally exchange likes on each other's posts, but never really messaged one another. She and her husband had started a weight loss journey about a year ago, and they were very excited about it, posing by bags of sugar at the grocery store representing how many pounds they had lost, etc. I remember someone asking them what they were doing, and they said keto at the time, so I didn't think much of it. Not my cup of tea, but good on them. This image of people in the grocery store, I'm just thinking if I was in the grocery store myself and I'm walking down the baking aisle seeing people posing with bags of sugar, like super weird behavior to witness in public, but you gotta do what you gotta do to make your point on social media about weight loss, I guess. So my teacher and I are now messaging on Facebook. She's asking how things are going, is getting excited when I share my successes with her, even leaves me a freaking recording of her singing happy birthday to me on my birthday. It's wild. I felt so excited to be really connecting with her finally. I never felt like I was good enough as her student teacher, and so it was thrilling to see her taking an interest in me. She and her husband continue their weight loss journey, but now are vague booking about this program and how much they love it. They also start posting photos of other people's weight loss results with that tiny disclaimer about the Optimal Weight 5-in-1 program that I now know is Optavia. We kept messaging, and not once does she bring up the program or her weight loss in our personal messages. She did send me a poll for what outfits to take on her work trip, which ended up being an Optavia convention happening, well, as I write this. I was thrilled that she would trust me with choosing outfits. That's usually something I reserve for my inner circle. Everything came to a head last week. She invited me to lunch and said she needed to tell me about an opportunity. To say I was ecstatic was an understatement. I kept wondering if she was going to ask me to help her with the new community choir she was launching, or perhaps help help teach at the summer certification program our local university hosts each year. My mind was flipping through every possibility. I couldn't believe she had such faith in my abilities to ask me to do something with her professionally. Well, you've probably guessed it. It wasn't a directing opportunity or a teaching opportunity or anything that had anything to do with the skills I have worked so hard to hone. I was the opportunity to join her downline. To say I was devastated is an understatement. I felt so used, and of course I said not right now, and of course she continues to press, saying it could help pay for classroom supplies. I highly doubt that. In a predictable fashion, the messages stopped. She posted a selfie of her and her husband going to the conference yesterday to see all of their coaching friends. Optavia is a terrible diet, but what's worse is that it also requires you to exploit your relationships, and that is reprehensible. Love the channel, you're doing great work. I hope my former teacher one day stumbles on a video like yours and begins to rethink some of her decisions. She's a great lady. I just wish she had left me out of her business venture. Thanks so much. Your story outlines so beautifully that relationships are often conditional when it comes to being in an MLM, and everybody in your life is looked at as a business opportunity, as an opportunity to recruit them, sell them something, otherwise make some money off of them. Even if that means finding your student teacher from 14 years ago and messaging them on Facebook and trying to have this fake relationship with them now. It kind of makes you wonder that if she wasn't in an MLM, do you think that she would be reaching out all these years later to try and strike up this conversation, rekindle this friendship, and pretty much just kind of pretend to care about your personal life and sending you happy birthday messages and things like that? I would venture to say no, that probably would never happen if she didn't have some kind of ulterior motive in mind. Even if that motive doesn't make itself known right away, it's becoming more and more common now for MLM reps to kind of what I call like butter you up first before they pitch you. Try and rekindle this relationship with someone they haven't talked to in a while, strike up small talk conversation about unrelated things, and they're trying to build rapport. They're trying to build this level of trust with you before they decide to pitch you. And in your case, that is extra crushing because this is your mentor teacher that you kind of hold high on this pedestal. I know I hold my mentor teacher on a pedestal. When you're student teaching, you really look up to your mentor teacher and you see them kind of as like the pinnacle of what you want to become, right? And it sounds like throughout your own career, you've stepped into your own, you're doing all these great things and all these great accomplishments are coming your way. And in a sense, kind of gaining that approval that you always wanted from your mentor teacher who wasn't quick to give out that praise at the time. That's gotta be crushing when you think that the purpose of your conversation is going one way on this professional route and it goes completely sideways when she wants you to join her diet MLM. Like, that's just gotta be really disheartening to come to that realization. And in my opinion, this strategy that MLM reps are using these days where they're kind of having frequent communication with you about all kinds of more personal topics before they pitch you, I think that's more damaging. I think that's more manipulative and more sinister than the previous way of just sending someone a cold message and being like, hey, I have a business opportunity for you. Are you interested? Because at least in that case, you know what they're getting at, okay? You understand why they're messaging you and you can choose to engage with it or not. But here you are, I would imagine this feels like you've wasted all of this time and emotional energy into this relationship you thought was going one way and then it completely derailed at the end. I think that situation is a lot more harmful on people than I guess the more out of date way of just sending somebody a cold message on social media. But thank you for sending this story because it serves to kind of warn people out there that if there is someone from your past who's reaching out of the blue seemingly, go to their profile, check in and see what they're doing. Check for these buzzwords and for them promoting some kind of something, whether that's a lifestyle, whether that's a specific product, whether that's a specific kind of result they're getting, because odds are if they're pretty open on their social media pages about promoting something in combination with reaching out to you out of the blue after a long period of time, unfortunately, that is a warning sign that they're probably going to pitch you down the road. It might be worth it to just ask them straight up, hey, it's been a while since we talked. I see you're doing this thing, whatever it is. I just want to let you know I would love to catch up, but I'm not interested. It sucks to even have to think of it that way and be on the lookout for things like that these days, but It's kind of the unfortunate reality we're in, that we need to be skeptical of people reaching out and being nice to us in our messages and wanting to converse and catch up with us after a long amount of time. But thank you for sending in this story so that we can be more aware of that. This story says, "Hello Hannah, I want to make this short, sweet, and effective." Love that. "My name is Elizabeth and I will attach pictures. The purpose of this email is so you can share my name in pictures if you choose to. I thought about sending screenshots of conversations and posts from the MLMers pages, but I didn't want anyone to get into any legal trouble, so I'll just ask you to share my most commonly used photos. I found you on here because I recently started a Poshmark store, and me being the researcher that I am, I fell into a Poshmark rabbit hole. In doing so, I found you and heard you mention MLM in your other videos. I had no idea what you were talking about. If you're not sure what's going on, before I posted anti-MLM videos pretty regularly, I posted a ton of videos about how to resell on the Poshmark platform. So if you go back on my channel, you'll see a lot of Poshmark videos and then slowly this transition into MLM stuff as those videos started to gain more popularity, and now that's primarily what I do. But the Poshmark videos are still there for anyone who comes across them and finds them helpful. After looking at all your other playlists, I was hooked. MLM equals multi-level monsters. I didn't think I had a story. Other than the delusion, I thought I could do Avon not once, but twice in my young adult years, until I heard some mention in a few videos of people posting fake photos. I am part of those fake photos. I was 400 pounds and I lost 260 pounds over the course of 2 years due to weight loss surgery, okay? Noted, weight loss surgery. I started a Pinterest because I wanted some sort of a time capsule of my journey. It wasn't long before I started getting messages from friends on Facebook asking, "Isn't this you?" Well, I'll be damned, that is me. It was me, for none other than It Works. I messaged the poster something like, "Hello, this is my photo and I did not use your product, so please remove my photo." Then I was blocked. This was my first experience. Over the past 6 years, I have had random messages from friends with the same situation, for multiple different MLMs like Beachbody, Young Living, and more, including used in other languages and countries. So this is pretty insane. I've never received a story like this of someone who's like, my photos are being used for purposes unintended out there by MLM rep. That's crazy, but I'm also not very surprised. If you're putting your photos out there on a platform like Pinterest, that is so easy for people to go there and pull your photos and just use them in any way they want without giving any credit to the original poster or the person in the photos. And this is pretty insane that people are out there who are selling MLM products, who are going on the internet, finding your photos out there and claiming that it was their products that caused your results. And as you said, it was from weight loss surgery, not an MLM product, but that's not stopping MLM reps from still using your photos to push that narrative. I'm also not the least bit surprised that when you confront these people, they just block you, because how freaking embarrassing, right? They've been caught red-handed and they don't want to have to face the original person in the photos whose photos they're stealing. It's a lot easier to just block you and continue using your photos for whatever agenda they're trying to push. As you can imagine, my message has become less pleasant, sounding now more like, take my MFing picture off of your MFing page. I didn't use your garbage product, you're a liar and giving people false hope. I had weight loss surgery and you are a cheat and a scammer. Okay, you know what? Fair. I used to send private messages, but now I post it all over their page. Surprise, I always get blocked. Not once has someone said, "I'm sorry, I'll take it down." Never. Not even when I still had the patience for this BS. So I'm gonna pause your story right here and I'm gonna put your photos up on the screen. These are what you have attached to your email and given me permission to share. These are your weight loss progress photos, and these are the photos that have been circulating and have been being used by a variety of different MLM reps from a variety of different companies. Clearly, you've had this very dramatic, drastic transformation. It's very eye-catching, and I can understand why people would be using it for their own marketing practices. Doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it right, and I'm glad that you're calling them out for it, but I can see why they would want to use these photos as a way to try and sell their weight loss products. I wanted to send this to you because I wanted these multi-level monsters to know that this is not okay. Weight loss surgery isn't easy and it's not a 100% cure-all. It was hard work and took dedication and commitment to change my entire life. I was required to lose 30 pounds before I even had the surgery, and I had to meet with a nutritionist for 2 years. I had to go to therapy because no one tells you how differently the world will view you and treat you because they are judging you differently now. It was a lot to deal with. I personally believe therapy should be required for this type of procedure before and after for at least 2 years. Don't get me wrong, I am so very grateful for the experience and the better health I have now. And I'm sorry, but nothing lasts forever. After 6 years, having 2 beautiful and perfect children 15 months apart, and having a hysterectomy due to cancer cells being found in my baby maker, I've gained back about 100 pounds. But I feel better knowing I did what I could to better my health. Today, I am happy, healthy, if not a little overweight, and 100% cancer-free. And loving my new Poshmark life thanks to your videos. Thank you for all that you do and keep it up. You have made an anti-MLMer for life. Fight the multi-level monsters. Thank you so much for sending this story in. I think this is a really important experience to kind of broadcast out there. This is a very unique experience that I have yet to encounter. A similar experience, which I've brought up in a few videos now, is Jessica Hickson, who has a YouTube channel, anti-MLM YouTube channel. She used to be in It Works, and the only story I've heard that's kind of similar to this is that It Works still uses her photos for marketing to this day, even though she's been long gone, is very open about her experience in the company, is very anti-MLM now. But she took those photos of herself, she put them out there, and It Works is still using them to this day. This is the first time I've heard of a complete stranger, someone totally not affiliated with any of these companies at all, having their photos used. That's pretty wild to me, and it's something that you don't really think is gonna happen when you're posting them in the first place. Zeke, you're being a little crazy. You're being a little crazy. But regardless, thank you so much for sending this in. This is very important to share and make people aware of. If you're watching this video right now and you see these photos out on social media being used by MLM reps, just know you have a little bit of insight into the fallacies that they're posting. And let this be a lesson to us all to just in general be wary of before and after photos that we see on the internet, because we have no idea who that person is, first of all, how they lost that weight, second of all, and if their photos are being stolen for purposes unintended. A great lesson. Thank you for sending in this story. This story says, "Hi Hannah, my name is Sarah and feel free to use my name. I've been watching your videos for a while and I love and appreciate all the hard work you and the others in the movement do. As for my experience with MLMs, they've been around me my whole life and I didn't even know it until the end of high school. My mom always bought from her friends to support them but always managed to dodge the pitch. Our house had plenty of LuLaRoe, doTERRA, Rodan & Fields, Pampered Chef, Norwex, and many more. But this is about my grandma's favorite MLM, Avon. When I was in the 8th grade back in 2014, my best friend invited me to her birthday party. She had a deal with her parents to only have one party every other year to save money and to do something a bit more special the next time around. 2 years before, we all went out to get manicures, so I was excited. The day of, my mom dropped me off at her house and I headed inside. Since my friend and I didn't go to the same school, her friends and I were all trying to mingle in the living room as people trickled in. Once the captive audience was fully present, in comes the Avon hun with her black wheelie bag full of makeup. Dressed professionally. Since we were all 13 to 14 years old, we were at the age when many young girls started wearing makeup. She did a little demonstration and showed us her sample inventory, but that was only the beginning. We all got to pick out eyeshadow and lipstick samples and were told to put the makeup on ourselves. She walked around to help us, aka encourage those who had started and pressure those who were reluctant. I was trying desperately to dodge her so I wouldn't have to put the makeup on my face, as I already felt awkward in a room of people I barely knew. Some girls already wore makeup and were naturals at it, but I just felt clumsy and awkward and didn't want to look like a clown. Eventually, she and my friend's mom broke me down after several passes and I didn't have a choice. My rejections weren't working and she took the eyeshadow out of my hands and basically gave me a little line of purple eyeliner. It looked very sweet and age appropriate and I felt better knowing that she would leave me alone for the rest of the party now that I had makeup on. Boy, was I wrong. At the end of our party, as our parting gift, we all got to choose one thing out of the Avon catalog to ship to our house. At first, I rebuffed this offer because I didn't wear makeup, but my best friend's mom and the rep insisted. Because I was taught that you shouldn't order the most expensive thing on someone else's dime, I was looking for bargain items and things I would actually use. As lots of page flipping going and time went on, I finally found a $12 to $16 nail polish in a set of 3 that was one of the cheapest things in the catalog. I was very happy to find something and to get a cute sparkly polish that I would actually use. However, this wasn't enough. I thought I was doing a good thing by getting the cheapest item, but she had an unspoken budget for everyone and I was way under. After trying to crack me for about 30 minutes total, I just picked out another polish in the set of 3 and they finally got off my back, unable to change my mind. Looking back, this was all very strange and I was in a room full of strangers being pushed to the limits of my social anxiety. I just wanted to hang out with my best friend and it just felt like an awkward mess that I tried to forget about. I can't even remember if I put down my own address for the items to ship to or if her mom, who sent paper invitations, merely passed them along to the rep. Either way, in hindsight, this would also enable her to send our mom's promotional material to get them to join. I continue to wonder about all of this now that I'm an adult. However, besides the party itself, I don't remember her being very pushy sending mailers out or anything. Anyway, thanks for listening to my story and letting me get that off my chest. I hope you're having a great summer and say hi to the kitties for me. Great summer, wow. You can see how very far behind on stories I am if this was sent in the summer, because now it's October. I have a lot of questions about this story. First and foremost, I would love to know, and I know you don't have the answer, I would just love to know how this all came to be, right? Because what it sounds like is your friend's mom knew somebody who was an Avon rep, and that Avon rep asked them to host a party. This is a very typical MLM thing to do. The reps from these companies will find people they know who are willing to host a party where they go out and find people they know, gather everyone together for an event, the Avon rep comes in, pitches, and sells to these people. It's a really great way to kind of expand your market. If you know just one person and that person can bring in 10 other people that you don't know personally, that's expanding your customer base, right? Very common. They've been doing this since the dawn of time with MLMs, especially with the older MLMs. It was really common to have these in-person parties versus something on social media. And I would just love to know how this all came about and who thought it would be a good idea to host an 8th grader's birthday party as an Avon party. Typically, you would have a guest list of primarily adults. You don't typically invite children to these kinds of MLM parties. So it feels like this weird, like 2-for-1, killing 2 birds with 1 stone situation. Like there was an opportunity at hand that her daughter was going to have a birthday and might as well make the party an Avon party. Like it's very strange to me. And it also sounds incredibly awkward and uncomfortable to have a bunch of preteen girls trying out makeup for the first time and being highly pressured to do so. I don't think that's appropriate either. And then my third and final question is who was paying for all this stuff from the catalog? Because what it sounds like is you were trying to do them a service of picking one of the cheaper items, not going for the most expensive thing because you were under the impression someone else was paying for it. And now I just have to wonder who in the end paid for it, if not the guests, if not the preteen girls at the birthday party. It's weird to me that she was kind of trying to get you to buy something more expensive because typically you wouldn't do that unless they're the ones paying for it. If you were the one paying for it, you would want them to choose something cheaper. So now I'm wondering if there was a quota kind of situation, like the Avon rep had to meet a certain number in sales that month. But still, it's weird. Would the Avon rep pay for all of those orders for all of the girls at the party to get their product? Did your best friend's mom pay for the product? Because in a typical MLM party, the people in attendance, the guests at the party, they are expected to purchase something because that's what's beneficial for the rep, not the rep buying things for the guests. Anyway, I'm very confused. I have a lot of questions about this party. I don't think this ever should have happened. I think this is kind of inappropriate to be hosting a party like this for girls of this age and then putting all these weird social pressures on them to try out makeup and to place orders for certain products and things. But it does go to show that if there is an opportunity out there, an MLM rep is gonna jump on it. An 8th grader's having a birthday party, we're gonna make it about Avon. Very strange in a normal context, but it makes perfect sense in an MLM context. This story says, "Hi Hannah, my name is Michaela. I'm a recent subscriber. I've been watching you for about a month now and I love your content. Also, sorry if I'm not the best writer. Moving forward to my MLM story. I was 18 years old, a senior in high school. My parents did not want to teach me how to drive since I have a rare chromosome disorder known as DiGeorge syndrome. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And I was fresh out of my second open heart surgery. They were too scared to let me drive, but looking back, I realize now why they would have been, but being the rebellious teenager I was, because I got my not so experienced high school friends to teach me and extended family. My aunt, knowing that I had these conditions and knew what I had been through that year, called me up. She was telling me about the amazing opportunity known as Mary Kay. My aunt also knows that I have a learning disability, so getting a normal job would be hard to get. She said that the job at Mary Kay would be super laid back and easygoing for my condition. She said one day you'll be able to get the Mary Kay car if you work really hard enough for it. She was also in Sensi. I don't know if that's allowed to be in 2 different MLMs at the same time, but she did. It depends on the contract of the specific companies. Some companies are totally against you being in multiple MLMs at once. Other companies are okay with it if the second company is not within the same product market as the first company. So in this case, with Mary Kay selling cosmetics and beauty products and Sensi selling wax melts, the two are very different. The clientele is not going to overlap as much. I don't know those specific contracts, but it wouldn't surprise me if she was allowed to be in those at the same time. We talked for a while and she explained how easy it was to make Facebook posts, and if I went to college, I could get my new college friends on board too. She told me about all her great friends she formed over the years by going to conventions and through having parties. It sounded pretty good at first. She was hyping me up and I almost fell for it. Being family with her, I had grown up with Mary Kay and Sensi products in the house. She would throw a party and my mom would take us. My mom even did it for a little while. That's a whole different story in a nutshell. So later on that day, I looked up Mary Kay since that's what sparked my interest. In my opinion, at the age of 18, that was too expensive for me to join and buy products. I hated asking my parents for money, so that wasn't an option. I'm a YouTube fanatic, so I hopped over there to find myself going down the anti-MLM rabbit hole. We love to hear that. Boy, was this the time to jump into the anti-MLM train. It's fair to say that I became an anti-MLM fan pretty much instantly. I became really upset after finding out the truth of these companies. At 18, I was thinking, how could my aunt try to scam me and use my health conditions as a way to get me in? I was so upset after realizing what really happened. So on one hand, I am beyond elated to hear that a young person out there took to YouTube, found this kind of content, went down the rabbit hole, learned a little bit more about this business structure and the dangers of it, and through that they were able to prevent themselves from getting involved. I love hearing that. That is the goal. On the other hand, I do want to make it clear that I don't think we should jump immediately to the conclusion of like, my aunt was trying to scam me and she was taking advantage of my disabilities and things like that. On one hand, that is what is happening, but on another hand, it's important to remember that a lot of people who get involved with MLMs, they don't see the harm in it themselves. And if I had to guess, I would assume that your aunt was trying to genuinely give you an opportunity she thought would help. She figured that it would fit nicely in with your lifestyle and with your conditions and kind of working around that, especially if she herself has had lots of positive experiences associated with being in Mary Kay. It makes sense that her, as a loving relative, would want to kind of offer that opportunity to you as well. So yes, it is true that she is in a scammy company and she did take advantage of your vulnerabilities, but I also want to point out that she may have done that unintentionally. She may have done that without realizing what's really going on, and that there may not have been any malicious intent behind it. So please keep that in mind too. I'm not quick to jump to the conclusion that every person in an MLM is like vicious and manipulative and out to get you and just in it for the money and stuff like that. I do think that genuinely good people can get involved in something that they aren't fully familiar with what's going on. I also preach to my grandmother, mother, sisters, and even the aunt about the anti-MLM community and why they are being scammed. My mom is no longer in any MLM. My older sister stopped Mon8. However, my aunt is still in Sensi. I'm guessing she dropped out of Mary Kay because it's not popular anymore, but in the early 2000s, you best believe it was in almost every household in the South, at least it was for my friends and family. It's not so much a horror story, it's more so about how I became anti-MLM. I just wanted to say how they will try and manipulate people who have conditions like mine just so they can get another person under them. It's sickening. If I wasn't smart enough to look it up first, I might have even joined, but it was the price for me. How was I supposed to join and get products without having money? I was basically a child with major health conditions, so of course I didn't have a job to afford these things. I'm just happy I had Google. I loved watching Savannah Marie, Kiki Chanel, and a few others who no longer create content anymore. Anyways, thank you for uploading amazing content. We need people like you. Someone like me could have been swept in and hurt in the long run. Warms my heart to read. I'm so so happy you sent in this story. This is the perfect example of what this content aims to do. Put the information out there, make it really searchable, and hopefully people who are looking for more information on these companies and business opportunities come across this content in the process. I'm so glad to hear that this worked exactly as intended in your case and that it did prevent you from joining Mary Kay. I think that's amazing. Thank you for writing in your story. This story says, "Hello Hannah, I recently watched one of your videos and saw a story about Cutco/Vector and it brought back memories from my experience with them. It's nothing super crazy but thought I would share. When I was fresh out of high school just a week or two back in 2010, my grandma told me about a job opportunity she saw an ad for. The ad was for an entry-level sales position with Vector selling Cutco knives. I saw the number and set up an interview for the following week. I woke up the day before my interview thinking it was that same day and that I would be late. I remember rushing to get ready and feeling so nervous I was nauseated, but I made it on time, practically running to the office. At the door, I was met with the woman who I would be interviewing with. I introduced myself and said I was there for the interview. She looked me up and down and told me that I was a day early. I apologized and told her I would be back tomorrow, and she responded with, "Good, because it looks like you haven't even showered." What on Who says that to someone? I can't with that. Looking back, that should have been a red flag, but my inexperienced self was just embarrassed. I left feeling ashamed, but committed to coming back the next day looking professional. I did go back to find the interview was going to be a group one. Some of the people I recognized from school. I don't remember being asked any questions at all. Instead, we watched videos and we were told about all the amazing things you could have if you did well with the company. Cruises, vacations, money. The interviewer made a point of telling us how her mom had driven her to every appointment because she couldn't drive, and that we had to have that same level of commitment to make it, and that we had to make connections to find people to sell to. Oh, and that it wasn't that hard to do, just to be confident. I remember feeling panicked. At that time, I barely knew anyone. I was insanely shy, and I grew up poor and only knew people who struggled with money. I didn't know anyone I could say would buy the knives, let alone could afford them. I couldn't even afford them to start working. I had to borrow money from my grandma to buy the set. Two things I'm noticing from your story already. The first one, this isn't the first story I've heard of somebody going for a Cutco Vector marketing interview and being insulted by the interviewer on the way they were dressed. This came up a couple videos ago. I want to say it was like Horror Stories 41 or 42, something very similar happened. And I said it in that video, I'll say it again, that if someone professional is interviewing you for a professional, legitimate job, they're never going to go as far as to insult your appearance. Why would they do that? What motivation do they have? Even in this situation, I don't know what the motivation is, because in the case of the other story, the woman had said that she wasn't interested in the job and that's when she got insulted by the interviewer. Here, you haven't even had the interview yet. You just came a day early and she still felt like she had to say that to you. It's very strange. What is going on? And the second thing I want to point out is that you're saying here that you couldn't even afford the knives to start working. And this is where I feel obligated to say that if you have to spend a ton of your own money for a job, it's probably not a job. It's probably a scam. Most legitimate jobs are not going to require you to shell out a ton of money up front to be able to work for them. That's a huge red flag. But in order to join MLM companies, there usually is a pretty hefty startup cost because you have to buy into the opportunity and you have to buy a starter kit of products. So that should be a huge concern if you have a job in front of you that's telling you need to give them a whole bunch of money or buy a whole bunch of product in order to be employed there. If that's the case, it's most likely not a legitimate job. It's most likely some kind of business opportunity, and it's most likely not something you really want to get involved in, especially if the startup cost is ridiculously high like it is for Cutco. I made appointments with every family member that had time. I did the demonstrations for them, shaking the entire time because I was a very shy person, and I still remember the look on their faces and thinking I was a total failure. After only about 2 weeks, I had run out of people. I didn't know how to make more connections, and after a few days of stressing, my mom convinced me that it wasn't worth it and that I had to quit. I went into the office and told the lady I had interviewed with that I needed to quit and return the knives. She tried everything to keep me and told me I wasn't applying myself and that I had to push family members to give me more people. And when that didn't work, she began telling me I could give my knife set as a gift or that I would need them later on. At one point, she was even trying to get me to keep just 1 or 2 knives. What should have been a 5-minute thing took over half an hour. An ended with her telling me I wasn't cut out for it. No pun intended, I assume. I'm surprised now that I held my ground and got my money back. The courage I had that day didn't last though. It severely affected my confidence and I spent the next few months bombing job interviews. When I started college in the fall, I still felt extremely inept and ended up dropping out. I struggled severely with my mental health for the next few years and I didn't get another job until I was 23. They aren't fully to blame, of course, but her words and attitude stuck with me. Now I'm 30 and I'm very good with talking with people. In fact, I actually really enjoy it. I'm confident in my skills, but it took many, many years to build that up, and I attribute a lot of it to bosses who lifted me up and would never in a million years treat me like that lady did. I'm still bitter over the fact that they target kids in or just out of high school with no regard for their future, but I'm grateful I got out when I did, and it did teach me to never fall for another MLM again. Thank you for making space for people to share their stories. Even if you don't use mine, I'm super grateful to be able to tell it. Much love and keep up the good fight. I appreciate that you're sending this story because it helps to highlight that specifically Cutco or Vector Marketing, they go by either name, they really heavily target high school kids, and that happened to be the case in your story as well. My theory as to why they go for high schoolers is because this MLM company has been around for a really long time, and when you just think about the population of adults in the world, people over 18 who can join Cutco, that population is pretty well picked over by this point. Like I said, the company's been around for a really long time. There's only so many people out there that you can pitch to. At some point, you're gonna run out of people. And so what I think, my theory is that they go for high schoolers, newly 18-year-old people. Zeke. And this is also a really vulnerable population of people who are fresh out of high school, they're wanting to enter the workforce, and they probably don't really know better. They may be more likely to fall for something like Cutco because they're not really familiar with what a real job interview looks like, what the real expectations of a job are, the fact that you don't have to actually spend a ton of money to get a job. Like, all these things are very strange and abnormal in the workforce, and younger people with less job experience may be more susceptible to just going with it because they don't know any better. Those are all my theories about why 18-year-old high school kids, fresh out of high school kids, really do get sucked in. I can't even tell you how many stories I've read of high schoolers who join Cutco. It's unbelievable. And unfortunately, a lot of those stories end in the same way yours did. They join, they try it out for a little bit, they run through the people that they already know. There's not many people they know to sell to. They're not really sure how to make connections. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. You're doing these demonstrations to the people you know personally, and it's just weird, right? Lots of people get weirded out by this opportunity pretty shortly after they decide to join. And one thing's for sure, that joining Cutco is not a long-term job, nor is it a career. People are joining and quitting this company at an unbelievable rate, and the more we can talk about it, the better. The more this information is out there for young people to see before they get pitched, the better. So thank you for sending in this story. And with that, my friends, it's all the stories I have for you for this MLM Horror Stories video. Again, like I said, if you have your own story you would like to send in, check out the description box. The instructions are down there. When I receive these emails, I put them in a special folder and I pick out a few for each video. So naturally, it does take me a while to get through them, but I can never have too many stories. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.